Hello, I'm Mimi and welcome to PLL Recap. We're going to be going over PLL number 88 today, which is the second half for the 7.3 live letters. I will be using my own translations, which are also supplemented with the XIV Reddit Discord's images and translations, which are by Muna, by the way, as well as notes from Mika Mischief. The link to the letter, at least, will be in the description. So, let's get started. We started off, of course, with the trailer, as well as one would expect, the release date of August 5th. They then rewatched the trailer and talked about, kind of gave director commentaries as usual. A lot of things were actually too spoilery, including songs, cutscenes, dialogue choices. This is extremely as unspoilery as you could get. So I'm sure there will be lots of surprises in store for us in the full main scenario. The first scene they mentioned as well in the trailer is actually not quiet at all, but it does have a sort of uneasy feeling to it, so that's probably why they included it. They mentioned, obviously, as one would expect, that this is the finale for the Dawn Trail scenario, the kind of epilogue, so to speak, while also leading us into the next one. And he made a couple comments about recent events, such as yesterday's Zepp Yokohama performance, where he saw a lot of players wearing, or rather Warriors of Light, wearing regulators at the concert. And he also talked about Anime Expo, where he said it was very cold. He said it was quite cold. They, of course, then moved on to a recap of the PLL, where they started about the MSQ and the trial. The trial is, as one might expect, still a big secret, big spoilers. And they're not going to tell us anything. However, they did a brief talk where Yoshi P asked, which one are you better at, Morbol? Physical or mental focused trials? To which Morbol said that he preferred physical, things like Valley Garmanda and such, with Yoshi P giving a So I suppose we should be expecting more of the mental type of trial here, but they didn't really state too much. They did say that it will drop 2 totems, as it is slightly longer of a fight, and they did make a mention about debating the trade-in balance in the future, as obviously you kind of cut in half the grind. They also said in general this is a mentality reaching into other areas, rethinking what's standard, so perhaps that would be something we can see in the future. The next topic they went into is the Occult Crescent updates, which you can see here, including things like the instance will always be created when an alliance of 24 players or more joins in, and if they meet the 4 tower entry requirements, an auroral mirage will occur within 5 minutes after arriving on the isle. Instance exclusivity will remain until the mirage expires. Minimum number of players required to use the Sanguine Ciphers to enter the 4th tower will be increased from 16 to 24, and you will be able to check the Sanguine Ciphers that have been offered and your selection status. You will not be able to see other people's eligibility, or rather the entry requirements, as they thought that it might create discomfort or, I suppose, bullying to an extent. They also made the change that players must offer at least 1 Sanguine Cipher to enter the 4th tower. They will no longer have players selected that offered nothing, as while they originally thought of the idea as, it kind of as a bonus, a surprise, it turned out that in experience, in practice, it was a negative experience for players and caused problems, generally speaking. The other changes, they mentioned this in the last PLL, but they're kind of recapping. The occurrence of new auroral mirages will be put on hold during critical encounters, and the treasure coffer will have adjustments to its drops, as well as containing gold and silver pieces. And then they continued on with more of the recap, including mentioning that we're going to talk about Echoes of Anadil, the new Crystalline Conflict stage, the new Treasure Dungeon, Vault Oneidon, the fact that we're going to be getting Stadio Unreal, and talking about the chat bubble feature. They also mentioned the duty support for Cutter's Cry getting added, expanded Hrothgar and Viera headgear support, the option to hide Viera ears, which of course elicited a silly comment of, but if I fold my ears, I can't hear. Yeah, we thought of that, but oh well. They actually did debate for a while if the ear should stay or not, so that's why it's been made as an option. A lot of requests was for the last one, where the hood changed, where the bangs are now visible, and that is finally happening. On the next slide, they talked about the new cosmic exploration star, Paina, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it in English, as well as they made an offhand comment which might have been in a previous live letter, but the idea of glass rain, I believe they mentioned. And then they also mentioned the weapon enhancement for phantom weapons. They brought up that a returning old step will be made easier. And this is based on feedback where people might have an this type of reaction. The idea is to do lots of different types of content, and while it will be a lot to do if you try to rush through it, bum rush through it, but if you kind of take it slowly, day by day, step by step, it can be done relatively casually. And it is a step that is done once, and then you do not need to repeat it. And then, of course, they brought up the Deep Dungeon, which at this point in the PLL, they mentioned that quote-unquote, character appeared, and then they also brought up, of course, the Yahui, and inconceivably further Hildebrand adventures. Following that, we moved into Echoes of Vana'diel. Here, they talked a little bit about bugs. They made a one bug talk mention that the Raofao, I believe that's how it's pronounced, BGM kept playing instead of the battle BGM. So that was a bit funny. We got to see the loading cutscene, and we got to see, I think this is Yoshi P's new portrait. It's all old pieces though, but nonetheless. We have, of course, a scattered memos, as one might expect. They are around, they're not like super spoilers, but they weren't going to read them there. Next, they showed Ronfold, which they said during early QA that some of the QA team members said that it didn't look like it was itself. It didn't look like it was right. So I believe, obviously, by now I'm sure that it is much better. They changed to this zone, which I forget the name that it showed, but it elicited a reaction from Morble going, ugh! Kind of, I hate it, to which Yoshi P kind of responded with a sentiment like, good, that's exactly how you're supposed to feel. And then we get to our Faithbound Keating, and the things that I noted down, some of the attacks names were Double Smite, Stone 4, Crimson Riddle, and Summon 4 Lords, which we saw this here being Double Smite. Here is the Summon 4 Lords, where we got to see, we have four, obviously 4. 4 little summon circles, and he ended up summoning, I believe it was Seiryuu, the blue one. And they mentioned that the summons will change each time. It will not be like a set specific one. So you won't see all 4 in a single run, which will make it a bit more fresh each time you go in, at least until you've seen all 4, I'm sure. Next, they brought up, which you can actually see right here as well, but they brought up the idea, or rather the feature that's being added, where the nameplate can have cast bars. It is, however, only enabled on certain bosses that they choose to. However, you personally can turn it off for all bosses, of course. It is only enabled on specific bosses as it majorly impacts fight balance. Being able to see the cast bar on other enemies without having to check the enmity list really impacts your ability to process and see these sorts of mechanics and where they're going to come from and what's doing what much easier, so it's on a per fight basis for now. They did say that they try to make tells and marks and such, the way mechanics are shown, to be easily understandable by the majority of people, but they said that some things in this Alliance raid might read differently for some people. And then, furthermore, they brought up changes to the Orchestrion, which, as an Orchestrion collector, I'm quite happy to see. They changed that the rolls drop from the Alliance-specific coffers, no weekly restrictions. Second and third bosses drop 3, 6 from the fourth boss. They also mentioned that they feel that the fourth boss is one of the hardest. So we'll see how that turns out. Moving on, we got our lovely A4 showcase of raid gear, including this adorable outfit on Mikote, which a friend commented that this hair looks new, which it may be. I'm not entirely sure. We have this dancer outfit. I assume dancer. Next, we have our lovely Prish outfit, which I'm quite excited for personally. We have this adorable outfit. I really do love these little hair bows. And I believe this would be the male equivalent of the dancer outfit here. Moving on from that, we have our PvP updates. Obviously, as one would expect, Series 9 begins. There's some action adjustments as usual, and some trophy crystal new items for the trophy crystals. Obviously, they also mentioned there'll be a new Bayside Battleground, the arena for the Crystalline Conflict, the new PvP tiers, Omega and Ultima, which will hopefully mean that queuing will be smoother of an experience. Players can also register for casual matches in parties of up to 2. They also added a timer for the medical kits so that you can more easily tell when it's going to appear as an item you can use. They adjusted the function of Purify, which for those like me who might only know the icon, this is the item that cleanses debuffs. It will have a shorter recast time, but in place of that, it will have a 2500 MP consumption, and the resilience effect has been shortened by 1 second. The following, as they state here, statuses will have persistent visual effects: Undead Redemption, Nebula, Cheaten, Wreath of Fire, and Wreath of Ice. Then they show us in the actual instance of the gameplay. It looks beautiful. It looks absolutely beautiful. It is straightforward, no gimmicks or anything, and such like that. It's got a lot of line of sight, so you can utilize that to your advantage. As for PvP gear, which is likely from the trophy crystals, we have more streetwear, like our big jacket guy that was accidentally showed earlier in the PLL. We have this sort of, I don't know what word I would use, but we got a lovely beanie here. Nice combat boots too. We've got this woman who gives me very American vibes. I know there's no red, but she gives me very American vibes. And I think this is, well, he's got a jacket, but he's also kind of big pant guy. Following that, we moved into the talk about the Vault Oneidon. It is, as we expected, the roulette style of treasure map. Instead of being a spinning wheel, it is instead a slot machine. It is a slot machine. They did mention, following the break, that they put a lot of effort into paying attention on the spin speed to try to make it not too dizzying, but if players feel that it is too fast or what have you, it does feel dizzying, to please leave feedback in the future. As some side notes, he did get 2 small dreams and a big dream, and as a fun note, he got a Figmental Coffer from the big dream. The mob here it's hard to read in this image here, but its name is Paeonia. There was apparently a Mandragora pun in the attack name. As for gear that will be craftable from treasure map drops, we have a lovely best man type attire, which I'm happy to see, as we really only have the one best man set, which is pretty simple, very old, and the bridesmaid dress, which is also very simple and very old. So we have our masculine with the nice suit and bow tie, and we have our feminine beautiful dress, which I quite like this one. And as an aside, these are not part of treasure dungeons, but this is the upcoming crafter gear, which has the velvet velour look to it, which I'm quite pleased by, and this is our gatherer set. Moving on, the next topic was, as one might expect, following the break, was the deep dungeon. They then continued with a basic explanation after bringing up the new one is called Pilgrim's Traverse. And they talked about the concept. The underlying concept between this is it's a deep dungeon for everyone. No matter what type of player you are, it's for everyone. And here they went into a rather long, somewhat serious discussion about the balance of casual versus hardcore type content. You know, how back in the day, content was very limited. You know, back when even I started playing, patches were kind of divided. Even patches were included raids and they were hardcore focused. Odds had the alliance raid and were casual focused. They tried to expand on it so that we got a little bit more of a mix by adding things like ultimate to the odd patches. And even when they start developing content, the devs would start putting those pieces into categories. Like, oh, this is for hardcore players, this is for casual players, this is for A, this is for B. And moving onward, they want to try to make things for both sides of that coin. You know, while if they release, they made the statement, you know, if we release 10 things, you know, a single person isn't going to enjoy every piece of it. Maybe they only like 3 things. That was their reasoning for trying to put the content into those boxes. You know, we should divide the content so that way they at least get, you know, each of those groups gets something. But they are now trying to step away from that mentality. They want to make content that's enjoyable both in a hardcore and a casual way, as well. Obviously, not everything can be casual. You can leisurely do ultimate, I suppose, but ultimate is not a casual piece of content. Deep Dungeon up until now, some people might just go, oh, it's just 30 floors, why not? Sure. But then the minute that they have to they have to join a fixed party and organize and all that stuff, they just don't bother. So they want to be able to leisurely go in whenever they feel like it. Whenever they have maybe 30 minutes to do 10 floors or something. Obviously, hardcore mentality, hardcore focused ways of doing Deep Dungeon is, you know, focusing on high scores and solo and such. But small groups of 4 or so people also feel that there's not really much hard content for them, which is a focus for the Deep Dungeon. Which thankfully, as someone who enjoyed Criterion for its very difficult 4-man content, they did later mention that a variant dungeon is in the works for 7.4, which I can't imagine not including Criterion. So I'm happy to see more 4-man difficult content. As for the dungeon itself, they showed us quite a few different bosses, like this lovely gamer leaf pile. This guy, who we saw later due to the Mountain Minion showcase, is named Forgiven Mimicry. We have this guy with his giant arms, and we also got to see the gear with a beautiful stained glass look. But as for the changes that they are making to Deep Dungeon in general, they kind of covered the whole regular stuff. You know, 1 to 30 is part of the main scenario. Pilgrim's Traverse will allow matched parties all the way through. However, one thing of note is that you will still have Pomanders reset. So in its own way, it's got its own challenges as well. Furthermore, they're also adding more checkpoints. Obviously, you could restart from floor 1. You'll be able to restart from 21 to 30, and then they do 31, 51, and 71 as further check marks. So if you get a full party KO, you have more checkpoints to go back to, rather than having to start all the way back from floor 1 again. And obviously, as a result, if you fail the boss on floor 99, you will have to start again from 71. That means that we're following the more recent structure of 99 has a boss, 100 is still the take a picture zone. They will also be adding a new duty that allows players to directly challenge the floor 99 boss as often as they like, almost as a sort of practice. You do, however, need to reach floor 99 once to be able to enter into this instance. They did show the instance. The English title is The Final Verse. We can see the boss is likely named Eminent Grief from the Japanese name of the boss fight. And obviously, as it's just the boss, you cannot access floor 100. You can't go to the fun picture zone. You just get the one fight. They brought up all of the explanations. You can challenge with 1 to 4 people, so you can practice as solo as well. You can talk to the NPC to get it, and you can occasionally get drops from it. And furthermore, they're going to be adding objectives to the challenge log that should hopefully encourage more people to do it more regularly. they will be adding the luminous oil, which I believe is the potsherd equivalent, but we can't be too sure, to a couple floors, as well as Blessed Horde, the highest tier, to floors 30 and 70. So you can get more chances to get the rare rewards without having to get lucky on the Horde as well. At this point, they did, as are expected, a Mount and Minion showcase. Here we have our Gaming Leaf Pile. Unfortunately, he did not roll over the name of this, so we don't know his name. However, this guy, we do know from the rollover text, is named Forgiven Mimicry. Next, we had the this one. Next, we had the Chandelier, which is titled First Light Chandelier. Next, we had the Cosmo Board. Of course, I think everybody knows this guy's name, our lovely Yan, which I expect to be from Treasure Maps, but don't quote me on that. Obviously, Cosmo Board is from Cosmic Exploration. And then we have the Sin Beaver minion. And finally, he did not show this, and while I'm not entirely sure if it's new, I didn't recognize it. There is a mount named Pilgrim Protector. Someone can, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, and that's already in the game. But that was one I saw a rollover of. He did not summon it. Continuing onward to more of Deep Dungeon, they are also adding in the final verse, Quantum. They're adding Quantum difficulty. This, you receive offerings from a quest after you reach floor 100, and you use those offerings to enter this fight. You have to at least put in 15 offerings up to a maximum of 40, and thankfully, these offerings are only consumed upon defeating the boss. And you do need to do with a full party of 4. Unlike its quote-unquote normal version. You can get more of those offerings by getting a Cursed Horde, or rather, Blessed Horde, as well as bought off the market board. There are 5 types of offerings: Sacramental Spirits, Spices, Grain, Light, and Lilies, and you can put up to 8 of each type for a totaling of 40. Bare minimum, though, you must put in 15, and that is due to a new system to alter the boss's parameters. Here, they show a pentagon of pentagon of 5 categories: physical damage, maximum HP, light damage, dark damage, and fire damage, which you could choose to increase altogether. You could increase only one stat, or you could fill it up all the way. Furthermore, the total amount of offerings will alter the mechanics. Thankfully, they did state that buffs will be labeled on the boss to tell you the results of what you put in. So while they didn't tell us what each of these 5 do specifically, we will be able to tell what they impacted out of the options based on buffs that are on the boss when you load in. As might be expected, there is a title for a fully buffed 40 offering clear, and the quantity of the rewards is based on the offering total, so you will get more for offering more. They went back to that topic about Deep Dungeon being, this type of Deep Dungeon being for everyone. This is the first type of content that they're building with this type of mentality. What they want to fight against that idea, that reaction that Deep Dungeon is like this, or X content is like that, because they feel like it's a bad mindset to go into designing a piece of content with. They're aiming for the idea that if they add 10 things, each person will find 7 things that they like. It'll obviously be a mixture depending on each person, but that they'll be able to find more things that they like because they can go about these types of content, this type of content or that type of content, in a way that they enjoy. That's the mentality that they're trying to focus on. Not trying to put things into a box too early. Of course, he understands the idea that players might feel that this change is too late, but of course, it's better late than never. And he really encourages players to play, try it out, and give feedback. After that statement, we moved on to... They showed us in-game content. The 3 NPCs here, the Nemo is named Tilman, assuming I can read the green on green well enough. The fairy, I believe, is Ose Wid, and the Amaro is Van Sao. There are, we saw in the next slide, only 2 saves, still, and we loaded into a really, really pretty Fae-themed instance. He exploded quite a few things, and he swears that it was not intentional. And eventually we found this new thing on the floor. This is called Votives. It grants buffs or debuffs for the following floor, or maybe not buffs, effects for the following floor. Below 30, thankfully, it's only positive, but 31 and above, it can be either. The examples that they gave are here. You know, players may be transformed into powerful monsters, you might get a regen, the map may be hidden, number of traps might be increased, and so on and so forth. We did actually see him get one. However, while it is titled something like Monk or Priest's Blessing, the debuff that is visible here, he didn't roll over so that we could actually see what it does. So he did roll over right next to it where it's the HP and MP increase, but I did not see the effect for this purple circle-y buff that he got from the votive. So unfortunately, I don't know what this one does. He did, of course, activate all of the pomanders, and now in this fight, or instance, we have Juniper Incense. And there are 3 types, as one might expect. They are all tied to Feo'ul, because of course they are. The 3 types were, I would translate as Equilibrium. This is the one that summons her to do the Titania ultimate attack that clears the enemies of the floor. Intelligence, which cleanses the floor, including buffs. He utilized it on the floor here, and it got rid of the HP and MP buff. Maybe not the best choice. And finally, the last one is Tranquility. Gives the buff that when we rolled over, could see that it increased the base HP. I don't know if those are set in stone or if those are just what he got from those, but regardless, the Intelligence and Tranquility ones did also have Feo'ul follow you afterwards. The name is story-related, they say, though as a personal note, when I went and looked it up, apparently there are relations to Gaelic traditions, which are most certainly Fae-related. And, of course, they showed us some rewards. We have a lovely Fuoth-styled glamour set. They mentioned medical supplies, framer kits. We've got our lovely Feo'ul minion, which I have been extremely impatient for. I can't believe they took this long to give it to us. And our lovely our gamer leaf pile from before is also here. Moving on, we talked about system changes. As one might expect, there's a bit to talk about chat bubbles. But, however, they started off with the Blacklist improvements. They did not go into detail. They pretty much just said, please read the post that we made. Look at the lodestone and read it there. So I will not go over it there. The next, and possibly one of the most surprising changes that they're going to bring up, is the Phoenix Down changes, where you can use it in quite a lot of 4-man instances, can buy them, and can stack them up to 999. However, it will now have a 6-minute or 360-second cast time, or recast timer. So they will actually be kind of useful. Next, they talked about group pose, where they're adding portrait mode, which has 2 parts to it, portrait preview and portrait mode. They also added the ability to rotate text stickers, which they showed us here. You can see here they have this yellow little light up portrait mode, and you can preview and you can set it all up so that it's all pretty good without doing our classic head tilt. And then the button below it turns it actually into portrait mode, where we get our lovely head tilt mode. I'm sure if you are old school, you can still do it this way, but why would you want to do that? And furthermore, they're adding chromatic aberration options to the settings, as well as an option to change the strength of a filter. The chromatic aberration you can see in the corners here. It is where that red, green, and blue get split off. And here we have posturization 2, if I remember correctly, at about 60%. So it is partially grayscale and partially posturized, rather than 100%. Next, we have 3 new voices for Doman Mahjong, Buklumat, Kona, and Bakuljaja. And some character display range increases, where we have our standard, the default range, we have wide and maximum. This kind of just impacts where they show entities in the area. Then we got to talk about chat bubbles. This is an optional feature and it is off by default. It can be set on or off based on the chat mode, and you can either have 1 line or 2 line. It will automatically truncate based on word count. Unfortunately, they did show it with Japanese, so I don't know how the word wrap will work. I'm sure, I hope that it doesn't follow Japanese rules, but we'll see. Chat bubble and font color can be set, and yeah, text will be truncated at a certain word count. They did say that they decided after debate to not have it visible in battle or PvP. And the reasoning they stated was that they don't want players to feel pressured into using it by other players. And the way that I explain this to my chat is the idea that the chat bubble, not what's written in the chat bubble, but the chat bubble itself, like using a shout chat or a yell chat to call out something like what they used in their example, you know, saying, oh, I have this debuff. The text isn't what you're using as a way to call something out, it's the bubble. So you could just type a period and then hit enter. While yes, you can make esoteric, weird callouts, and I have done so in my groups, if PF adopts something like this, it can feel like you're pressured into using chat bubbles even if you personally don't like them. And as me, personally, somebody who doesn't want to use chat bubbles, I don't want to feel like I have to use them to be in a party with PF. It should be an option to how you customize your play experience, not as a tool for combat. So yeah, they stated that they want this to be player's choice. They don't want players to feel obligated to use it or pressured into using it because of how people utilize it as a tool rather than a customization option. They showed us the different chat bubbles, which I do have to say are really nice. They're really, really lovely designed chat bubbles. I really like the different icons. I like that little side gradient. I think it's very inspired. Very pretty. We have our lovely and from our lovely Rogan in here. And unfortunately, the display length of time is not changeable due to rendering constraints. And in my opinion, watching the live stream, it was a very short time, and I think I would struggle to read some of these, so I don't know how useful it will be outside of happenstance screenshots. But my opinions aside on that matter, I'm glad to see that something people have really wanted for a while is coming into the game itself. That was the end, however, of the PLL. That's all the changes that they talked about. And they moved into our classic announcement corner. They brought up some of the merch that's going to be available at the Daimaru Umeda and Tokyo branch stores that are having little pop-up stores. The items will be made available, at least for Japan, in the latter half of August, but they will be made available basically today in the pop-up store, including the silicone ice tray and 10 different acrylic standees. They also announced the Volume 2 of Pulse remix album getting a physical release, which will include 5 new remixes. It will release in North America and Europe on October 17th. They actually do already have a page up for this. The 5 new tracks you can find here is the ones that are labeled as coming soon. The new tracks are Return to Oblivion, Athena, The Tireless One, To the Edge Remixed, Fiend, and Endwalker. And next, then they brought up a clothing brand, which is apparently Square Enix owned. Lit Bath Apartment is getting a collaboration with these really nice looking equalizer designs. However, they're on the back, which is unfortunate in my opinion. These will be released in Japan in September, late December for North America, late January for Europe, and unfortunately, North America and Europe will have large and extra large only, which, as a very tiny person, I have opinions on, but ah well. And they also, of course, as per usual and as one might expect, they will be doing a live patch note reading on the 5th. And that is the end of the Producer Letter Live. What were your thoughts on the PLL? Was there anything that was most interesting for you? What piece of content are you most excited for? I think I'm still really surprised that Phoenix Downs are getting a change all these years later to being possibly actually useful. But in terms of content, I am extremely excited for a Fae-themed Deep Dungeon, so I can't wait to be able to schedule running it with my usual Deep Dungeon group. And I'm also very, very happy to hear about another variant dungeon, as I think that they are a piece of content that is fantastic for lore, as well as world building, that I'm really excited to see. And plus, you know, despite my troubles with... despite my struggles with Criterion, I am happy to run with my friends again, and I hope to be able to stream it. So, while I will unfortunately not be able to stream on patch day, as I will actually be flying to Japan, if you'd like to see my experiences with the patch, especially Deep Dungeon, as I do them with friends, please give the channel a like or a follow. I live stream every day, except for Mondays, on Twitch and YouTube. I post my schedules to Twitter, Blue Sky, and the YouTube community page. And I also release animated shorts every Wednesday. I would like to thank the supporters that you can see here on screen right now. Thank you very much for your support, either by being a Twitch subscriber, YouTube member, or supporting me on Ko-fi. It means quite a lot, and it allows me to keep doing stuff. I hope you have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time it is for you. And I will see you guys next time. Oyasumimi! Bye bye!